All right, Shalom. First off, and give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh by Hashem Kadash. Want to give double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone. And it's sincere Shalom to the Akim out here that's doing and pushing this work in truth and in sincerity. Okay, the hopeful elect. Okay, want to go on this video of how come the Christians don't ever talk about the zios. Okay, and you should know who I'm talking about when I talk about the zios. Okay, those people who's over there in that land. Okay, the people control everything. Okay, um, the rich man. Okay, um, the extortioners. Okay, the top wicked elite. Okay. How come they don't never talk about those things or break down these scriptures, you know, um, in regard to them? Okay, because the scriptures speaks about the rich man, in the New Testament, and Christians they want to go off of what the New Testament say, right? But what about the people who control everything, man? What about the rich man? You worried about the poor, okay? The poor man, going out, us, going out there on the highway and hedges and, teaching, this word, okay? But, when it comes down to the people who control everything, y'all don't have no word, for them. Okay? This is James 5:1. It says, "Go to now, you rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you." It says, "Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you. And you shall eat your flesh as it were fire. You heaped treasure together for the last days. Behold, the hire of the laborers, which have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud," right? When you look at the state of how we, if you got a job, right? So you get paid every week, every 2 weeks, or whatever, right? You got taxes that come out, right? You got all different type of things. You got to pay bills, So the scriptures talk about we supposed to get paid every day. Okay? Ain't nothing religious about that. Okay? That's just, a fact. And in the regard of how Christians people when they try to combat us, they try to say, well, what religion are you? It's a religion in regard to how we serve our Lord, okay, the Most High, okay. Yeah, that is a service that we do, okay. But being a Hebrew Israelite, okay, the laws, statute, commandments that's inside of the Bible, okay. One of the laws is that you're supposed to get paid, okay, the same day. Don't let the sun go down on the wages, okay. And then you have the usury, right? You got people who they'll get a loan or credit, right? And then you have to pay interest and everything like that, to pay off your debt, okay? And this country puts you in more debt. Now people might say, okay, those are individual things, but the whole system in itself, okay, who created the system? Who runs it? Okay, you got people who are extortioners who funds it. Okay, the rich man, right? We keep on going. It says, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the Lord. I mean, the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth, right? Was the Lord of armies. Okay, the real God of war. Okay, which is Yahweh. Yahweh is his son name. Okay, throughout the whole entire world. Okay, you have different countries that are not happy with the state of, you know, that country over there, you know, where the zios, you know, reside, okay, or control, I should say. Um, and in America, they're not happy with that union, okay. It says, you have lived in pleasure on the earth and been wanton. You have nourished your hearts as in the day of slaughter, as in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and killed the just, and he does not resist you. Okay, it says, be patient therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman waits for the precious fruit of the earth, and has long patience for it, until he receive the early and latter rain. Be ye also patient, establish your heart, for the coming of the Lord draws nigh. Again, and when he comes back, what is he going to do? A lot of Christians don't even talk about these things, man. You know, he coming back to party, and you know, some people would think, oh, he's just coming back to drink wine. He's coming back for for bloodshed. Okay, to reap. Okay, he's known as the Grim Reaper. Okay, you got thrust in his sickle, as the scriptures say. Okay, and a lot of people gonna be put to death. Okay. Now, this is another one of the scriptures that they don't go into. Christians, Luke 16 and 19. It could be because they don't understand the breakdowns of these scriptures. You know, that's one reason. You know, they got the 501c3. You know, yeah, they just into prosperity. Okay, there's many different things, man. Different reasons why, you know, Christians just don't break down the scriptures, you know, appropriately. Okay, this is Luke 16 and 19, right? And now it says, there was a certain rich man. Okay, it's a parable. It says, which was clothed in purple and fine linen and fared sumptuously every day. Okay, and there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, who was laid at his gate full of sores. Okay, and it says, and desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. And you know, this is the state of our people. Okay, Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. Okay, with the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, these other nations, they came in because they're, you know, likened onto dogs. They came in, you know, set up shop. You know, our people don't have, you know, anything. You ask some people what the homeland is, they just say Africa. You know, don't even know where at in Africa. You know, Africa is named after the so-called white man, Leo Scipio Africanus. Okay, but you know, their beginning and end and everything that they say, you know, it comes from, you know, what they was told from the so-called, from an Esau, from the so-called white man. Okay, everything that you niggas know is from you know, what you learned from somebody else. You know, as far as Esau. Okay, the ways of the devil. It says, and it came to pass that the beggar died and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. And in hell he lifted up his eyes being in torments and seeing Abraham afar off and Lazarus in his bosom, and he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that thou in thy lifetime receivest thy good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. And now he is comforted, and thou art tormented. Another thing with Christians is y'all don't believe in these scriptures, man. Okay? But Esau, okay, the top wicked elite, they're going into slavery. Okay? They're gonna continual employment, which is something that Christians don't go into. Okay? They don't go into the Old Testament. Okay? They don't talk about these things, right? It's Ezekiel 39 and I start at 14. It says, and they shall sever out men of continual employment, passing through the land to bury with the passengers those that remain upon the face of the earth, to cleanse it. After the end of 7 months shall they search. Okay, so they're going to have to, dig up, or bury these bodies. Okay, that's going to be caused because they, going to bring a lot of, they're going to try to escape from the hell, that's about to come on Earth. Okay, with the thermonuclear missiles, okay, and the Lord returning. But when they try to escape, they're gonna go into these bunkers, okay, these rat holes, and they're gonna have to get dug out, okay, by the men of the Lord, and they're gonna have to be put into to slavery, okay, and they're gonna have to clean up the earth and rebuild what was destroyed. Okay. It says, so now, it says, now he is comforted and thou art tormented, right? Because that, imagine not having to lift a finger your whole life, always having people do stuff for you. And then going into digging up dead bodies, which, stink and, could be heavy and all that, Imagine that. It says, and beside all this, between us and you, there is a great gulf fixed, so that they which would pass from hence to you cannot, neither can they pass to us, that thou wilt come from thence. Then he said, I pray you, therefore, Father, that thou wouldest send him to my father's house. For I have 5 brethren, that he may testify unto them, lest they also come into this place of torment. It says, Abraham saith unto him, they have Moses and the prophets, let them hear them. And he said, Nay, Father Abraham, but if one went unto them from the dead, they will repent. And he said unto him, if they hear not Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rose from the dead. Okay? So, these people over there in that land, they trying to act like they the people, but they not. They don't listen to nothing inside of the scriptures. They don't fit none of the prophecies as far as, the people going into the land and they being peaceful and everything like that. They're starting wars and everything. They don't believe in a Messiah. Okay? So, why Christians don't talk about them? You know, the top wicked elite who are oppressing, you can't say much about them. We got to speak in code, you know. But the Bible talks about them, you know, in code. You got to be able to break it down, okay? So with that, you know, Lord willing, this is edifying. I want to say shalom until next time.